So what we'll talk about today is we'll talk about the spiritual process and how it applies when one has some kind of mental issue or emotional issue. And the commonest manifestation of a mental or an emotional issue is usually depression. So we can look at it that way. And it's also unfortunately very common that people try to solve a depressive condition with a spiritual practice. Now, I'm the last person to say that is not possible, but on the other hand, there are many caveats or there are many warnings to be issued, because to fix an emotional or a mental problem with a spiritual practice means that you have to be in very tightly controlled environment. That is usually possible only in ashram sadhana. You have to go to a special place where all the daily factors that trigger you and contribute to whatever your state of mind or state of emotions are removed. Your diet has to change. You have to be given certain kind of practices. Somebody has to know it. Then yes, the spiritual practice can cure. But that's not very helpful for people like us who have to live and work. So does that mean it doesn't help? Yes, it helps, but you must understand that when you're doing, especially when you're doing meditation, meditation strengthens your core vibration. Whatever it is that you are, meditation strengthens that. Your authentic self is strengthened. Your authentic state of being is strengthened. So if in that 1 month you are depressed, you are unfortunately sometimes with your meditation strengthening your depression. If you are in a very happy state and you meditate, you are strengthening your state of happiness. So many schools of meditation say when you are feeling sad, when you are feeling down, don't meditate, because you will deepen that habit in yourself. You will deepen that possibility in yourself. Those are the schools which do not prescribe too much of self-awareness or too much of processing, because if there is processing done, then you can escape that. But recently I read something and it really shocked me. There was that killer fellow in Norway last year. He went on a killing. Anders Breivik, something his name was. He's a very expert meditator. Even now in prison he is meditating, and he used to meditate to control all the pain and turmoil that he is feeling. And he confessed that I use meditation to numb myself till I could go out and start shooting all those people. He used meditation to emotionally clamp down. So you see, very often when people think that they are healing themselves from an emotionally upset state or a mentally upset state, they are only controlling it. They are only discovering a way in their meditation to manage it and stay functional. Now I am not going to knock that. I am not going to criticize that. That itself is a great skill. No, sometimes you cannot, and in meditation they tell you, very often the yogis tell you, box it, which means I can't deal with it now, so you put it in a box. I'll deal with this when I am in a better place in my life, and I have the resources, the mental resources, the emotional resources, very often the financial resources, the relationship resources. I'll just consciously not deal with this aspect of my life or my life circumstance at this moment. I will put it away and I will develop the other sides. Unfortunately, like a person like Breivik, what he did is he not only boxed it, that became like a pathology. He controlled his mind to such an extent that he forgot even basic human compassion, and he understood if I still have basic human compassion, I just won't be able to walk in and start killing people. If I can think of them as human beings, I won't be able to kill them. That is one way of brutalizing yourself. In the army, they do it quite differently. They yell and scream at you, and they shave your head, and they don't let you sleep, and they basically break down all your human responses, because it is very difficult to kill another person. They know that hand to hand combat, people don't like to do it. When people can actually see who they are shooting us, they miss about 70-80% of the time. It's not in human nature to just go around killing another fellow human being. So you have to train the people, you have to brutalize the people until they become like automations, until they become like machines. Then and only then they can effectively and efficiently kill other people. This is well known. Now he used meditation because he used meditation in a value-free context. Nowhere in meditation they tell you that you have to abandon values or whatever. In the beginning they insist on compassion. They insist on seva. Daya and seva are insisted on in the meditational tradition, because they know this problem happens. You go inside. Every time you sit and you retreat within yourself, you become strong. You become immune to the pain of living. You become immune to your emotional responses. You become immune to your mental responses. You become a strong person. But if that is overdone, you are not a strong person anymore. You are now a callous person. You are a person who no longer cares, which is why they keep insisting. They keep insisting. Even in the ashram they will tell you. Now, of course, people say that is a way to get free slave labor. Yes, there is a lot. There is a lot in that. Clean the ashram, cut the vegetables, cut the garbage. Yes, there is a lot in that. Yeah, seva. But basically it is seva. Don't get into the trap of sitting and indulging yourself with your meditation. You must keep your relationship with your environment and the people in your environment going. If you do not have that sense of service to the world, they know that this coldness, which is why very often when people run away to Himalayas or to the jungle or something and they come back, they tend to be very hard, because they have lost that relatedness. They have lost. Yogis are anyways hard, because yogis understand how karma plays out. So yogis are the most cold-hearted people, because they are like, it has to be dealt with. Might as well deal with it now. Why postpone it? If I intervene here and fix this situation, the trouble will erupt later. So might as well. So yogis appear very flint-hearted. It's not that. They actually have this. When I do the compassion and forgiveness thing, I'll talk a bit more on that. Thing about depression is that depression is just a generic term like cancer. It is not any one problem that can be called depression. Now, I don't want this to appear in any way that I am giving medical advice. If you have depression, you go. I am a person who suffers from depression from childhood. It's genetic. And it is not something that happens to you. It is not something that there is a reason for. It just is. And this is very, very difficult for people who don't suffer from it to understand. That depression just is. Stephen Fry, he's one of the most brilliant people in the world. He's an actor, he's a writer, he's an activist, he's a comedian. He tried to commit suicide last year, because he was in a depressive state and he was outside his environment. It was somewhere in Pakistan or something. I don't know what he was doing there, probably some documentary film. So, first of all, if you have it, you need to know what kind do you have. Is it something genetic, or is it something that is triggered, or did it happen because there was some kind of severe trauma or loss? Because all these have different kinds of, and I'm not getting into the medical thing, because most of the time they dope you up. They give you drugs and they whatever, and man, the kind of thickness that it creates in the consciousness, I don't want to go there. But you can, with your awareness, if you're doing your meditation not to numb yourself, but you're doing your meditation to become more aware. As your awareness develops, you start realizing what are the things that trigger you. Now, I went through my life for years and years. It's only recently that I came to know that the monsoons send me into a terrible spiral of. I just didn't get it. I just didn't sort of make the connection. Monsoons say I will feel bad. I understood that much. But to say something like I have depression, I am actually told by many people, you're a yogi, you're a spiritual teacher, you should never say that out in public. And I'm like, why? Why should one lie about these things? Why should one pretend some kind of state? Forget about perfection, forget about health. There is no imperfection in that. Depression is just a biological thing where I am concerned. Why should one pretend that one is in a certain? And a lot of these scandals that people get caught in later is because they've been pretending, they've been fulfilling the expectations and projections that come from the larger group or the larger community onto them. This is how I ought to behave, this is how I ought to speak, this is how, people get very upset when I say things like, no, I'm not celibate, no, I'm not a vegetarian, because it all goes against the standard perceptions, none of which have anything to do with yoga. They are all cultural projections. And they are recent cultural projections, hardly 300, 350 years old. But to come back to this thing about how does one deal with it, you see, because this is a question I keep getting from people. They write into me and they say, we've been under treatment for these many years and now we want this kind of, and the sense of self-awareness is not developed, and you want to do very fearsome kriya, you want to do intense meditation. No, they don't, the context, the cultural context for these practices has been lost. They don't understand ki ye sab ashram, it will work only in tightly controlled ashram sadhana, it cannot work. You're having a high pressure job, you are suffering from depression or schizophrenia or whatever it is, and on top of that you want to add a process which will really shake you to your roots. It's not recommended, and unfortunately these one size fits all things, because the tendency is to make these systems popular, so they just teach everybody and then people get triggered because they're doing the practices, they get triggered, and then they are in full blown paranoia or they are in full blown depression, and then the teachers don't have the skills, they have neither the psychological nor the emotional skills to deal with it, and they give some foolish prescription like surrender to the guru and anyways. But if you have awareness, which after all should be, the privileging of the tortoise mentality, where you withdraw all your limbs, you withdraw all your consciousness, you withdraw all your attention, that is what most people think meditation is. That you disconnect your consciousness. You disconnect, yes, of course, that's a very vital part of the whole yogic process, but that is not to numb you, that is not to so that you become less aware. Actually, awareness should be developed first. Which is why in our system we are always bringing you right back into the body. We are always bringing you get into 2 breaths, you are doing it with habit, third breath will break it. Now you got to again pay attention. You got to be aware at every moment. So yes, we hope you will go into samadhi and not move for 4 hours and 5 hours and maybe 1 week also if you really are into that kind of thing. But that does not mean that you go into it with unawareness, and unfortunately a lot of people are unaware. There is a large amount of psychological unawareness which even very expert meditators can fall into that trap. Now, Breivik, he is completely calm, he is completely functional, and he is very insulted that they have decided that he is insane. He doesn't want to be thought insane. He wants to be tried as a fully sane person. Like he's murdered so many people and I don't want to be considered Now that is how you can dissociate yourself. Now those who have seen my spiritual bypassing video, it's one of the standard techniques, and meditation can also, you can dissociate from your reality, you can dissociate from what you have done, what you think, what you feel, just because you have developed the technique of disengagement. You just go inside. You just go inside. Yes, it is true. It's a very valuable skill. Something really upsetting happens, you just sit half an hour in meditation, you come out, you're perfectly functional. You're no longer unhappy. Now, I've seen people, a death happens and they just sit in meditation and they are out and that's it. They are then taking charge of whatever is going on. They are consoling other people. They are just in that half an hour, they went inside and they got in touch with that consciousness which is unaffected by all the nitty-gritty of daily living. But they didn't lose compassion, they didn't lose engagement, they didn't lose that sense of relatedness to the environment. And the big problem with this is depression as it is causes you to go and withdraw and hide, because when you're depressed even bright light hurts you. And people and their constant chatter, oh God, how much stupidity, oh God, do I have to suffer? The other problem is usually depression is a gift that comes with creativity. Melancholia is very famously associated with creative people. There are very, very few creative people who are constantly chirpy and happy, We expect it, that they will be broody, they will have mood swings, we expect it. Because it is the shadow side or the dark side of that fabulous ability that you have. So even this much basic awareness people don't have. That is a problem. Not only that, even in spirituality, I cannot tell you how many great yogis biographies I read and I'm like, okay, in those days the diagnosis was not there, but these guys are depressives, man. They are full-blown depressive people, and they go into this dark night of the soul kind of thing where they just withdraw from the world and they have essentially a psychotic breakdown. But because of all the other practices that they are doing, when they reintegrate themselves, they come out not as shattered people, but they come out as pretty impressive people. But very often that reintegration, or when they emerge, they come with that partial knowledge, or they come with some new and fantastically attractive abilities, and that's very gorgeous to look at. And then all the other aspects of the psyche, or the other aspects of the character, the other aspects of the behavior that they haven't processed, that derails them. The best example in recent times was the Nityananda Swami, and I'm telling you, he's tremendously spiritual person. He is a really powerful yogi. He is a person who can reach out and impact and transform people. I am saying openly. He is fantastic. But he gets caught with an actress. Yeah. Why? Because the sense of developing all sides of the personality has been lost in the culture. Sannyasa was supposed to be taken when you were 50. Vanaprastha at 50. And sannyasa at 75. Vanaprastha is go into the forest and do your sadhana. Go into the forest and do your sadhana. 25 years you were supposed to do sadhana. Then and only then you were supposed to take sannyasa at that old age, when you would have none of these temptations and none of these potential derailments, and you've already lived a full life. You've been educated, you've had children, you've achieved your success, whatever. Then and only then. Today we have inverted the pyramid. No? We start, when you're 12 and 14, you take sannyasa. And then suddenly you get power, you get admiration, you get, it's not like I am famous, but just because of my YouTube videos, I get people writing in saying that how lovely and exciting they feel when they hear, and I can let all that go to my head, and I'm like, this is projection, a pure and simple projection. Because how can you fall in love with somebody you've not even physically met? So it's obviously not a real relationship, no? It's just something that they are projecting onto. I just become this screen on which their desires or whatever are projected. Okay. The danger is, because I always develop the psychological side, or I'm very aware of the need to know the psychological side, otherwise it can just go to the head instantly. And because I understood this thing about depression, because I understood how I feel, because I understand that anything can, and I am very, very aware of how my body functions. When I get up in the morning, I never get up without being conscious about it. I put my feet onto the ground and I'm like, okay, now do this consciously, don't do it automatically. When you stand up, feel the weight of your entire body, because for so many hours the weight was off your feet. Now the weight is going to fall on your feet. These are all awareness trainings that they teach you in yoga, that you do everything consciously. Don't do everything by rote. Don't do everything from tamas, from the worst form of inertia. And sometimes I know, okay, depressive episode in weight. So then I got to figure out. Usually I do 2 breaths with the kriya and that is it, all depression blown. But now the kriya has also become very habitual for me, because I've been doing for so many years, so sometimes that's not enough. Then I got to figure out, okay, I need sunlight maybe, so just stand and let the sun hit you, because sunlight does, even the reason we wake up is because in the morning the sunlight falls on our eyelids and that releases certain kind of chemical, and that sends signals to the brain, it's time to get up, time to get up. It's, the human body is so fine-tuned. So sometimes you just need to stand in the sunlight and let that thing work on your, and which is the reason why we get headaches in the afternoon, quite apart from the ultraviolet light, because you're already woken up and you're being woken up further, so your head can't take it. it gets overloaded. Or sometimes this is not a mental thing, or this is not an emotional thing, this is a physical thing, the body needs to move. So just go out and really run for 20 minutes. Because anytime the body gets tired, it's like, okay, there's no time to indulge you in depression. I need to deal with myself. Anytime there is a physical crisis, depression disappears. So depressed people love when they have an accident or something, because then once they survive that accident, they suddenly life is so sweet. That is what is called the peak experience. You have a really intense sort of experience, and that suddenly provides meaning and value to life. Because the whole point of depression is that you feel that life is dull, grey, drab, there is no purpose. What is the point? Even if I do, tomorrow will be the same, and day after tomorrow will be probably worse. And then something happens to shake that up and you suddenly feel, oh wow. So very often, many people who are sort of thrill seekers, they go skydiving or they jump off buildings or they climb mountains, they very often, I think, they tend to be depressive, and they tend to, by challenging themselves like this, they get into that rush. So those are all physical things. We are not talking about those physical things, we are talking about the sadhana. So when you go into meditation, if you feel that you are in a depressive state, don't go into meditation. Breathe vigorously, walk around for a while, do couple of squats or whatever it is that you need to do. Then once shake that up, then and only then. And then when you're there, that day don't try to go into that withdrawal state. That day you should stay in awareness. Everything that is happening, every little twitch, every little breath, every little shift, every little sound in the environment, you just go into that intense state of hyper alertness and you can beat it. Problem is the body is so habituated to inertia. Depression comes, okay, now we can slump. Now we can just feel. And the mind is even worse, The mind starts creating scenarios. See, you have been doing this for so many years. It is still not helping. You had so many dreams and desires. Did they come true? No, they didn't. They never will. And then your emotions join in. I am unlovable. And we all have those feelings. We all have those feelings of worthlessness. We all have those feelings of what is the purpose of my life, and I haven't found my purpose in life, and what do I do with the rest of my life, and all those things. Or I have done so much and I have not been recognized for it, I have not been rewarded for it. These are all loops. These are all standard loops. Break the loop. The whole point of meditation is, there I go again into that loop, and you feel, you start laughing, okay, right, okay, that loop, all right, okay, and then you can sort of train yourself in awareness not to let that standard habitual pattern. The real danger, what I always find, is that people try to medicate themselves with meditation, and that doesn't work. You cannot burden your meditation or your sadhana with all the issues of your life. It will support you in all the issues of your life. It will strengthen you in everything, but it cannot become the soul. Or even worse, just putting it onto somebody else, that you are the teacher, Guruji, hum aapke sharan mein aa gaye, now please fix us, and like it doesn't happen. You got to take responsibility. But to say don't meditate when you're depressed is fine, it is good advice. But most of the, or even when you're unhappy, or even when you just experience something that you describe as a setback, whenever you're in a negative state, don't go into meditation, because meditation strengthens that. Depression is just one of the most dangerous ways, because depressive people do and tend to end up committing suicide and things like that. That's the only problem. Since I became very experienced with meditation, the depression has been much easier to manage, because now I know all the patterns, all the triggers, whatever, I can see it striving to activate, but I know it will never go, because it is bonded in my biology. It is so deep within. It is just the way I am. That is the way I have been created, Okay, I can make it go, but that will require 2-3 years of very fierce sadhana for 10-12 hours a day. I don't have the time to do that kind of stuff. So, I deal with it in this way. You have to bring about a change at the cellular level. It will really mean 7-8 hours of sadhana, 3-4 hours of meditation. Who has the time to do things like that? 7-8 hours of pranayama, 3-4 hours of meditation. Then you can bring about the change in the cellular level. But many creative people have discovered, to their complete consternation, that when they started popping the pills, their creativity also ran dry. Their pain, their angst was actually a tremendous source of their. So, I do not think that the experience or the knowledge of pain and suffering is actually that bad. That is not how the human being is conditioned, because we are conditioned to seek comfort. But growth never happens in comfort. Growth happens only in discomfort. It's one of the first, when they know it in bodybuilding, the first thing they do is they rupture the fibers of the muscle. By lifting weights, what you do is you rupture the fibers of the muscle, so that then you let it be for 2 days, and then they join up, the fibers of the muscle join up. When they join up, they become stronger and bigger. That is the whole science behind lifting weights. You're actually causing trauma to your body, so that, controlled trauma, so that when it heals, it becomes bigger and stronger. So to me, a lot of these emotional problems and a lot of these depressive problems or mental problems are just the necessary traumas or the necessary ruptures that life give you so that you can enlarge yourself, you can keep growing, you can become more, you can start reaching your evolutionary potential. Because this thing of angst disappears and creativity disappears, there are just, both in my personal life I've seen that with my friends who are artists in so many domains, and across all the literature of artists, that is very true, that the minute they become happy, that's it, they run out of steam, they're running on empty. So it's not the problem is not that you are faced with the challenge. The problem is the inappropriate manners, the way we approach. Okay, I am having an emotional problem, I am having a mental problem, I am at the moment depressed. How we seek to use meditation like Valium. We seek to use meditation like Breivik did. He used meditation to control his pain. And he did not allow the meditation to guide him. He used the meditation very specifically to further his agenda. I want to make a point, I want to kill all these people, and I need to come to a mental state where I can do that without breaking up or cracking down. Now, if you pervert something to that extent, that is not the fault of meditation, and also because he is doing it without context. All meditations are done in a moral and ethical context, and I think it has to be in a system. There has to be the notion of compassion, there has to be the notion of service. If these two things are not there, callousness, because it does make you become tremendously emotionally independent, you become tremendously mentally independent. It does make you hard. I'm not even going to deny for a moment that it doesn't make you hard. No, that is one way to go about it, that to armor yourself. That's what they call it, in psychology, that you've armored yourself. You've just created so many defenses that now no matter what comes from the outside, but that's something that is armored is not living. That's not really living, it's not organic, it's not in interaction with the environment, it is blocking the environment. Whole point of armor is to block the environment. So you can create those, and if you're doing a proper sensible form of meditation, all the emotional and mental armor that you've created, they start falling apart. And you have to come to your authentic self, you have to come to reality. When that happens, that is another reason to become depressed, because you don't like what you're seeing about yourself. Your actual truth about yourself and your self-image about yourself and what is being revealed in meditation are at such cross purposes that it creates further anxiety or it creates further sorrow. Now, none of this is the fault of meditation, which is why they say when you meditate, please have a mentor. Please have a teacher, please have a guru, please have somebody who can tell you this is what is going to happen. Most of the problems that come up are because people are self-medicating themselves with meditation. They are not in a system, they are not with a mentor, they are not with a teacher, they are not with a guru, and they are using meditation, and that's what happens. If Breivik had a teacher, he would have never allowed him to go there. He would have seen what he was doing. You are dissociating, you are not engaging in any way, you are dissociating, you're numbing yourself, and he wouldn't have allowed him. He would have said, what are you doing? This is not what you do with meditation. I always believe first go and become healthy. If there is a medical problem, fix it at a medical level first. Don't come to the sadhana and expect it to fix it, because that's not the purpose of sadhana. In fact, many teachers say that only the exceptionally physically, emotionally and mentally healthy people should come to yoga. The reality is quite quite different. Until people are damaged, nobody comes. when they are hurting from life, when they are hurting, that's the time they turn up. And that's also the way the universe balances it out, I suppose. But it's all right. It's not a, but yeah, certainly one should not fall into this dangerous quicksand, because you can actually make yourself much worse by taking up a meditative practice when you're suffering from depression. So unless you have a teacher, at least, and unless you have a teacher who really knows what all this is about, instead of giving you some be positive and prescribes a secret to you, then then you are then you are guaranteed to be in trouble. Because relentless positivity is not a sensible thing, and that's what I call it. Relentless positivity. No matter what, you are not allowed to feel sad. No matter what, you're not allowed to feel. And some days you feel like shit, and there is nothing wrong in acknowledging that. There's nothing wrong in saying, today I'm down. But no, you're not allowed that, No. You'll send everybody. Don't be such a wet blanket. Don't down everybody around you. So it's fine. Those things are, that's all spiritual bypassing. Most of the time, this is the use of meditation as spiritual bypassing. My spiritual bypassing talk, I've spoken on some of the more common ways of bypassing, But meditation is, people have to develop that kind of skill. So, it's not a very usual form, but yes, people do. They do medicate themselves with meditation, and at least that must not be done. If you have an emotional problem or a mental problem or a depressive condition, you should not use meditation to medicate yourself. You can use meditation to help you come out of it. And no one approach is perfect. You should try whatever works. And especially a medical condition, please deal with it medically first. Don't burden everything onto poor yoga. Okay? So